What's up, YouTube? Today I'll be coming at you with a Noble Knight deck profile. So I've got 2 Merlin, and I personally like him at 2. A lot of people like him at 3 because he is a great card. But the reason I like him at 2 is because a lot of people run Effect Negation, Breakthrough Skill, Veiler, or a lot of people just Wing Blast him as soon as you put him on the field. So if you go first, he's really easy to use. But later in the game, he's a little harder to pull off, and I find that 3 of them becomes kind of cloggy because this deck already has a lot of searchability as it is. 3 Medrot, pretty self-explanatory. And I've cut Boars down to 2, mainly because Bedwar is now a card. And again, this deck is very searchable, and 3 Boars isn't really that necessary because I find myself only using his effect twice. 1 Gwalshavad and 2 Gawain. This is mainly for the whole combo and synergy that those cards have together. I love Gawain at 2. Occasionally I'll draw into 2 of them, and it's not always the best thing in the world, but he really does speed up the deck and make the rank 4 plays a lot quicker when you need them. And you can just abuse Gawain with Gwalshavad late game. And I run 2 Bedwar. I used to have him at 1, but I find that when I did, I always wanted him at 2. Again, he's a very good card. He can cause OTKs, or just if you have a Destiny on the field and you're trying to protect a monster, you can use Bedwar to put it on him. He really surprises opponents because they don't know his effect since he's a new card, so he's pretty interesting. And Bedwar has a lot of synergy with these 2 cards. If you can get Brothers, Tristan, and Bedwar in hand, it's a great combination because you get all 3 on the field, and assuming you have some arms during your opponent's turn, you can equip Tristan and pop something using Bedwar's effect. So there's a lot of synergy with those 3. And Brothers also has a really nice recycle effect. So I run 1 Vanilla Artorigus. I used to not run him, but as soon as I did, when I was testing on DN, over the next 3 duels, I drew into Lady the Lake and either Foolish Burial or was able to make Lavalval Chain. So just being able to dump him in Grave and summon him with Lady the Lake is actually a pretty good combo. Also, if your opponent has a lot of back row, you probably don't just want to go into Madrot and equip and try to use this in effect, unless you have an Excalibur and another equip. So if you can put him on the field and just boost him up with a few equips, it's not bad. And also, it's also nice to just have another monster in the deck. And he has a little bit of synergy with Lonzelin being a normal monster, like Madrot and Boars. 1 Ector, great late game, sucks early game, but it is very nice that opponents can't chain or use, what is it? Let me read it again. I don't want to say it wrong. Yeah, they can't activate cards or effects when you special summon, and that's really cool because what I find with the Noble Knight cards is my opponent will read maybe the first 3 sentences. So for all you Noble Knight players, you know that at the bottom of the arms cards, except Excalibur and Guinevere, it says that this card re-equips when destroyed. So his effect when you special summon, or using him as Exceed material, is on the bottom of the card, and a lot of people don't read that. And then they try to activate their back row, and you know what it is, and it's pretty awesome. Lonzelin, great card. Won't probably ever take him out. Especially, there'll be situations early game where I need an equip really bad and have a Merlin. And sometimes I'll use Merlin to go into him just to get an equip in hand, as long as my opponent can't OTK me next turn. Lady of the Lake, I love this card. Lonzelin, the Synchro Lonzelin, is probably my favorite monster in the deck because you can literally search out anything in your deck you need with him. It's really awesome. And it's pretty cool that if you have a Merlin in Grave and you just leave Lady of the Lake on field with a level 4 Noble Knight, you can sync during your opponent's turn. It's pretty funny because they normally just expect that from Yang Zings or somebody who happens to have a Formula Synchron out. 1 Guinevere. I had her at 2 for a very long time. Really, really long time. But what I found is that nobody's siding DD Crow against me. Nobody's siding Soul Release. Nobody's going into Rhapsody and Berserk. Um, I'd run two of her if she made more cards miss timing, but she does stop Shaddoll flip effects, but then they get the Grave effect. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Um, I know she doesn't stop Burning Abyss from missing timing, because nothing seems to do that. And I've just found that there's no need for two of her, really. In this format, anyways. Two Excalibur, probably the best equip in the deck. And a lot of people just don't read Excalibur at all. I was playing against a Sylvan player the other day, and I had Excalibur on Madrat, I think, and he tried to deprison him, and I was like, no. Then he tried to break through him. I was like, no, you can't do that either. And then he tried to Phoenix Wing him, and I was like, you can't do that. But thank you for showing me all three of your back row. Two Destiny and two Gallatin. I used to only run one, but Towers is a card, and also Construct is difficult to get over with a special summon monster if you don't have higher attack than it already. I've just found that it really gets you out of problem situations very easily. And as a result, I've cut Caliber into one. Life points are very crucial, and it was really tough for me to cut that card to one, but I found that more often than not, I need Gallatin for protection and to get over threats more easily. And one Arfugitor. This is a card that I really wish I could put it to, because every time I need it, and I use Boar's Effect to get it, it's really hard to get that 1 in 3 chance of getting this card. And when you need it, you really need it. But yeah, for right now, I just can't have it at 2. One Round Table, you only need one, because if you can get, I mean, if you don't draw into it, which in all honesty I've drawn into it maybe twice ever, and if you get High Lonzelin out, it's searchable, so yeah. Enough said about that. 2 Last Chapter, and I will never ever main this card at 3, because I mean, I've already drawn into it into two of them a lot as it is. It's a great card. I love having it because you can go all in with Madrat. I mean, you don't have to exceed, but you can just use this effect, use Boars, and even if you know your opponent might be able to get over the whole field, that's fine, because you can just reset up the whole thing with this card. It's awesome, but at 3, it's just too cloggy. 3 Lance. This is basically my protection against back row. I used to have trap stuns, but I took them out. Lance is awesome. The only problem with this card is that I find a lot of games, I mean, I open this card a lot, and a lot of games, when I have a bad opening, I'm literally setting this card just to stop an OTK. But, I mean, with the amount of times it saved me from being bottomless, breakthrough, torrential, random stuff like that, I'll just never cut it down to 2 unless I put in Mass Change the second when it comes out, but I still haven't decided about that. 3 Rhoda. Self-explanatory. 2 MST. I actually just put 2 MST in recently. I think it's hard to run a deck without MST in this format. But what I find happening with 2 MST a lot is, I mean, if I'm playing against Shaddolls, I'm probably going to go for their back row just because they run so little of it. Even if it's chainable, just because I can make them force chain it. But what I find I use this card for a lot is like face-up continuous spells or traps, something that my opponent really needs. Like, for instance, my opponent the other day had like 4 set back row with Black Wings and a Black Whirlwind, so I just went for the Black Whirlwind because I only have 2 MSTs, and I might as well stop things that help my opponent if I can't just get one single set back row card. 1 Foolish for Lady of the Lake Ector, sometimes Lonzelin, sometimes Vanilla Artorgus. and one Swords at Dawn. I teched this in at 1 a while ago, and it has literally saved me in so many duels that I'll never take it out. 2 is definitely cloggy, because then you'll start drawing into it when you don't want to, but one of these is incredible. It's awesome. Especially when your opponent MST's Excalibur and you need it back really badly. He has synergy with Tristan, anything that you need an equip on, so he's really good. I don't know why I'm calling it he, but... Alright. We'll go into the side deck. So, shout out to the Ignoble Knight of YouTube, because a part of the side deck is Tristan control, and I got that idea from him. So, for Tristan control, I put in another Bedwar, another Brothers, and I'm really happy that I traded for Brothers back when he was a $4 card, because as most of you know, he's 16 to 20 now, I think. And 2 more Tristan. So again, the synergy with these cards is great, and it really controls the game, especially against Shadal's, even Burning Abyss. They put their first Dante on board, and you can just go ahead and use Bedwar to pop it. Granted, they'll probably make another one, but that's 1 down. So, there's that. So I recently took out my Honests. That may have been a mistake, but the side deck is still semi a work in progress. But I took out one of the Honests for a Book of Moon, because it's just so good against Burning Abyss that it's really hard not to run it against him. And it does have some synergy with our Feud-Eater if you happen to have both of them. I got this idea from a guy on DN. I think his username was Rain Like Rain. 2 Hidden Armory, which, again, I also got the idea of Snatch Steel Abuse from the Ignoble Knight of YouTube, involving this card, and that you can take your opponent's monster during their turn. Granted, it goes back to him during the end phase because Swords of Dawn destroys the equip, but Hidden Armory gets you to Snatch Steel very quickly. It also gets you to your equips really quickly if you happen to need them. Noble Arms. So I think it's a very good card. I'm not going to lie, I haven't play tested it at all, but I think that the concept of this card seems to have some synergy with the deck. And then I side in a last chapter, because when I put in Tristan control, again, this is basically out of the Ignoble Knight of YouTube's mouth, I need more Grave Recurrence, because I'm running a little bit of a smaller monster count, depending on how many cards I've sided in. And with cards like Tristan, or even Bedwar, it's nice because you use this with Tristan and you're going to pop a face up. You use it with Bedwar, and you're getting another Noble Arm and Grave. So it's just nice to be able to kind of recycle plays with this card. And I know I said I didn't main it at 3, but siding it at 3 is very good. The way the deck runs in the Tristan control. This might need to change. But I side 1 Excalibur because there are duels where people target my monster so much, Burning Abyss, that I find that I really need 3 of these. And the reason I don't main it at 3 is because I end up drawing Madrat Excalibur a lot. And then it's like, okay, this is great. So it's just like Madrat Excalibur, you know, summon Bedwar, then you have 2 equips. Or I could have just had a re-equipping equip and gotten Boars. It's not bad, but it's just, I can't deal with how many times I draw into it with Madrat when I main it at 3 and I don't have a re-equipping equip. And Snatch Steel, we were just talking about it earlier. Another Swords at Dawn, because this card becomes very good when you have 2 more Tristans and a Snatch Steel. Bottomless, this is what I took on my other Honest for, because Clipports are a thing. And it's pretty good against Dante, because it's nice to get rid of the Dantes as fast as possible. To Call the Haunted, I almost main decked this card over MST, but yeah, I never really saw myself siding in MST that lot except against Clipports. And I mean, again, Grave Recurrence is really good with this card. It's good with Bedware because it lets you dump another arm engrave. Also, it's great with Artorgus because if somebody tries to attack you, you can flip Call the Haunted, get out I'm talking about the rank 5 Artorgus. You can get out Artorgus. If they attack over when he goes to grave, then you just get another special summon from grave. And this idea is also from the Ignoble Knight of YouTube, Soul Drain, because it's just great against everything that's not clip hordes right now. And granted, they'll probably MST it soon, but that's one MST you didn't have to worry about hitting Excalibur with. So that is the side deck, and here is the extra deck. So one Ignoble Knight of High Lonzelin. I explained that earlier. He searches out your entire deck. I think he's awesome. One Durendal. The reason I'll never take this card out is because he's really great against rogue decks, or just in situations where if you negate an effect during their turn, you will win. My friend plays Exodia, and this is literally the only answer to his deck. Also, if you happen to have Dristan on the field next to this thing, that's pretty awesome because you're going to go +1 off of Dristan's effect if you are able to get this one to go off. Two Baby Artorgus. I would run them at 3, but I just don't. The way I play the deck now, I'm not exceeding very often. Especially, you know, Shadal's really plus off of you exceeding. If you put out one monster against clip hordes and they get, I can't remember, it's either Helix or Carrier is the one that gets rid of back row, then you start having a problem. One Tsukiyomi. This is great when you have cards you want to dump in grave or when you just really need to draw. Also, he has pretty good defense too, 2300. Castel, pretty self-explanatory, I think. Gets rid of problem cards in general. One Gaia. The only time I've ever went into this card was against Melodious Divas because they had a lot of defense position cards. One Heroic Champion Excalibur. I used to have Blade Armor Ninja, but Towers is now a thing. And if he is literally the only card I can make, and I know I might be OTK'd, I'll have to put him out there just to stop the OTK, assuming they can't already get around him with other effects. One Gandiva. I think I took out Paladynamo for this. It's good against Burning Abyss, especially when they're using Tour Guide. They're still going to get effects, but I mean, they're still going to kind of plus off of me using this, but it does help slow the opponent down. One the Volval Chain. This is literally the most commonly used rank 4 Exceed in my deck, I think, maybe over Baby Artorgus. I don't know, it's pretty close, but when you can get Madrat, an Equip, and a Gawain, or like a Rhoda for your Gawain, especially when you know your opponent isn't going to negate anything, this is great to dump Lady of the Lake and Grave. Target your boars with her and then go into Lonzelin and start plussing off of Lonzelin like nobody's business. Also, rarely when I'm playing a slow game, if I have Lady of the Lake in hand, every so often I will use him to, not Lady of the Lake in hand, but when I've used Vanilla Artorgus to exceed into this thing, I will every so often put Lady of the Lake on top of the deck with this. And it's pretty funny because I actually did that yesterday, and Lady of the Lake was already on top. And I have that one random dragon sleeve on that card. Not really sure why. One Rhapsody and Berserk. He kind of fits in with the whole theme of the deck. Not with the banishing, but just with the fact that you can equip him to another monster you control. It's pretty cool. And banishing is pretty nice as well. I'm pretty happy that he came out super rare because he was my only non-holo in the deck, I think. Heartland Draco. Wins games, and your equips have some synergy with it, and that they can't, I believe it's targeted for attacks. Yeah. So this is a great card. And last but not least, Triple Sacred King. because he is the exceed that I go into probably the most often. And again, with the way the meta is right now, I honestly don't exceed very much at all. I was playing Burning Abyss the other day, and unfortunately lost because of a wing blast. But I exceeded, I think, once the whole game, and that's not the reason I lost. The reason I lost is because I got them down to 5 cards, and um, I had my field. They got my field pretty low. I had Ector and a Guinevere, and I knew his set card was a Wing Blast. So if I attacked, he was just gonna get rid of my field and then go for game. And he had a Virgil, and he top deck a Burning Abyss his next turn, and then he Wing Blasted my monster and attacked for game. So there wasn't much I could do about that. But I run obviously the round table build, and it is definitely built for the grind game. Every so often though, you will get some pretty ridiculous OTKs because of Merlin and Bedware. And I love this build. I've tried it with traps. It's just not my style, because what I've found is that a lot of people argue that this deck doesn't respond very much during your opponent's turn, which is one reason why I side in another Bedware, because he does allow you to use effects during your opponent's turn, as well as Merlin. He is a nice little surprise for your opponent. But so what I've found is that when you put in traps, let's say I were to take out let's say I were to take out my Gawains and my Gwalshavat and put in like 3 Vanities Emptiness, something of that nature. Or even take out, 5 to 6 monsters and run Vanities, Warnings, Compulse, something like that. What happens is you lose the consistency by having more monsters, and then people will argue, well, you provide enough stall to draw into your monsters. And the thing is, that's true, but instead of providing stall to draw into your monsters, why not just draw into them anyways just as quickly? Because that's what happened. When I tested with traps, I would stall long enough to draw into my monsters every so often. Sometimes that wouldn't happen. And I was thinking to myself, I could have just opened with this running, I think I run 19 monsters right now, maybe 18. So my playstyle is I like to have a lot of plays available in my hand to where, unless they flip the Vanities, I can just, play around it and go ahead and go into my next play. Whereas when you run more, negation with your traps, you really depend on one play going off more consistently. And that's not my playstyle. So I will probably stick with the roundtable build for a very long time, unless Konami is nice enough to decide to give us more support, because I would love that. Thank you all for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And I'll hit you up with the next deck profile next time this is updated.